welcome back to Weird Stuff in a Can. Today I've got a 2-can special for you. Two things that go together, I hope. Beer and chips. So yeah, today I've got a pumpkin spice latte porter, which is something to do with food waste as well. We'll have a look and see what that's about in a moment. And I've got some Lay's avocado and mustard flavoured potato chips. The beer has been chilled down. I've chilled it a little bit below cellar temperature so that as I'm wittering away about ingredients and things like that, it will have warmed up to cellar temperature by the time I drink it. Cellar temperature being somewhere around 10 to 12 degrees Celsius, which is the best temperature for enjoying a lot of English ales. Anyway, ingredients on here: water, malted barley, wheat, lactose, hops, vanilla, cinnamon, natural flavours, yeast. Right, okay, so stop wasting food. 18,000 tonnes of pumpkin is wasted every year in the UK. The iconic flavour that comes round the same time every year, pumpkin spice latte. Don't fight the hype. One thing that is year-round is food waste. Surplus to Purpose and Northern Monk believe our system is broken, but it can be fixed. We believe every single person should have access to food as a human right. This is how we end food waste. And donate today and find out more about what you can do to help. So I don't think this beer is actually doing anything specific about food waste. So this is not like one of those beers that's made from leftover unsold bread or something like that. This is just kind of a promotional thing. Surplus to Purpose. I will have a look at this website and we'll come back, and I might just put a bit on the end of the video to talk about what that's about. So yeah, this appears to be a kind of promotional thing rather than this beer actually creating a reduction in food waste. Anyway, so that's that. Pumpkin spice latte porter. I am, as you may know, a complete sucker for these kind of dessert flavoured dark beers. And then this, which is Lay's avocado and mustard flavoured potato chips. Lay's being the international brand for what is often branded here in the UK as Walkers. So these are from China. I bought them in TK Maxx just before Christmas for £3.99 for this 104 gram tube or can of potato chips. Ingredients on here: potato powder, potato emulsifier E472E, acidity regulator E330, palm oil, cassava starch, mustard, avocado seasoning, which is maltodextrin, sugar, salt, flavour enhancer E621, mustard seasoning, which is vinegar, mustard seed, salt, turmeric, maltodextrin, corn, humectant E1450, spice. Doesn't say what spice though. Flavouring, acidity regulator E330, flavour enhancer E635, sweetener E951. And do you know, it gets quite difficult with all the bracketing in these ingredients to actually figure out what's a list of something that's come earlier and what is just an ingredient on its own. Anyway, turmeric, sugar, dried avocado powder, which is avocado puree, maltodextrin, corn, salt, emulsifier E472, E322, which is made from soy. E951, aspartame, contains a source of phenylalanine. Allergy advice for allergen C ingredients in bold, may also contain gluten and fish. Okay, well that's that. Let's get the beer poured and then we'll try the chips with it. And I think today we'll use this Palmer's glass so we can enjoy the colour of this pumpkin spice latte. Well, actually, just as soon as I opened the can, that hiss of gas that popped out there was carrying some flavour, and I can smell sweet and cinnamony type of spice things. Okay, well, there we go. Let's have a sniff. Well, I'm not getting quite as much of an aroma as I did when I first opened that can. When the gas puffed out as it did its little hiss on opening, I did get a distinctly sweet and slightly spiced aroma coming out of there, but not getting so much of that in the poured glass. Tasting time. Okay. Well, so I like to, when I'm tasting beers, which I do a fair bit of, I like to break it down into kind of stages to say, okay, what hits you first, what happens in the middle, and what lingers at the end. So let's do that now. So initial little hit of hoppy bitterness, but also a kind of malty sweetness. And then in the middle, that bitterness expands, but it kind of turns into licorice notes, sort of like a bitter, dark licorice flavour. The background sweetness kind of rises and merges into a vanilla, caramel, very mildly spiced cinnamon sweetness. A bit like kind of a currant bun type of vibe right in the middle there. And then at the end, there is this lingering licorice and spiciness. So the cinnamon comes out and lingers, but the dark malts, yeah, there's a chocolatey note in there as well that hits at the start and goes all the way through the taste. And then lingering at the end, there's a chocolatey note, those licorice sort of vibes, and the hoppy bitterness. So the chocolatey note is right there at the start. The dark malts are giving it a chocolatey vibe right at the start. And that kind of underpins all of the other flavours. That was a bit confusing. I will put a little diagram of that on the screen for what I consider the tasting experience to be composed of. So that's that. Not a bad beer, actually. I like that. Not too sweet for a dessert beer. It is sweet, but not syrupy sweet. So, not sure I get the... Is this supposed to be spiced latte? Okay, yeah. It doesn't actually... When it says latte, it's talking about the lactose in there. It doesn't actually contain any coffee. But that's fine. Right. So anyway, that's the beer. That's really rather nice, actually. I imagine I've probably missed the chance to get this limited edition, get more cans of that, but there you go. On to the chips now. So now the thing with these is these are out of date. Quite a long way out of date, actually. 2023-07-27. So the 27th of July, 2023. That's more than 6 months ago. They must have been out of date when I bought them because I bought them in December. Anyway, I'm sure they'll still be fine. The vacuum seal is still there. And it's not as if things just suddenly become toxic the second it ticks over past the best before date anyway. So let's open these up and have a look. Okay, some unnecessary packaging in there. The chips are not only in a tube, but they're also in this little plastic boat inside of there. How about that? Okay, well, slightly broken up at the bottom, but that's to be expected with these things. And here they are. So, avocado and mustard. Let's have a sniff. Really not much aroma. Tasting time. Okay. Quite subtle flavour. I mean, avocado's a fairly subtle flavour anyway. And the mustard is quite subtle too, actually. The mustard, I can taste the flavour of mustard in there, but none of the heat that you might normally associate with mustard is present. Those are pretty good, though. And definitely not stale, despite being 6 months out of date. Well, I mean, they do taste quite unique. But there's nothing bold in the flavours here. Well, perhaps that's a good thing. As an accompaniment for my pumpkin spice latte porter, I'm going to say that's actually quite a good match. Although, of course, any salty snack with pretty much any beer is always going to be a winner. Now, the big question obviously is, are these chips or crisps? Because chips and crisps, there's obviously the main terminology difference between the UK and perhaps the Commonwealth, actually, and the rest of the world. So in the UK, thin slices of crispy fried potato, we would call them crisps. And chips for us are what the rest of the world calls French fries. However, there has been, I think it was Pringles actually rather than Lay's, but this style of chip, which is made from reconstituted potato powder rather than slices of natural potato, there was some kind of legal battle, and I think it was all about tax evasion basically, where they wanted to call them chips and they didn't, they called them crisps. But I've got a feeling that the truth about that has been blown out of all proportion by repetition on the internet and possibly distorted as well. I will see if I can get to the bottom of what actually happened there, but I have a feeling the ruling was different and had different reasonings on opposite sides of the Atlantic. I have a feeling they wanted to call these crisps in the UK and couldn't, and they wanted to call them chips elsewhere and couldn't, and had to call them crisps. But we're talking about Pringles, not Lay's. Anyway, alright, so this little segment was recorded after the main part of the video. So this Surplus to Purpose is a charity organisation that's based in Leeds, which is the hometown of the Northern Monk Brewery. So presumably that's why they collaborated with this. And it's a food waste action organisation, and they apparently kind of intercept food that would otherwise be wasted and try to put it to good use. That includes assembling food boxes, so you can, apparently if you live in the locality, you can order a food box and have it delivered, and it contains a random selection of food that would otherwise be wasted. I think that's a great idea. And they also do catering for events like weddings, where you can have your wedding catered, and all of the food sourced for the wedding would have been food that would otherwise have been wasted. So I don't know what you think about these food waste organisations. I think it's a bit too easy to be lazily cynical about them. I don't think they actually necessarily directly achieve all that much. They do what they do in their locality, and this one's quite a small organisation, so obviously it's not doing anything global, but it opens a conversation about why do we waste so much food? Why do we have a system that overproduces food and then throws a load of it away? And at the same time, some people are struggling to obtain food. It obviously doesn't seem right. Fixing that is not a simple problem. But if nothing else, I applaud the fact that these guys have engaged in the conversation about it. So that's at the very least better than nothing. Anyway, final thoughts on these and kind of weirdness rating. So, strange flavour concepts. Avocado and mustard, that is an unusual flavour combination, but they're not that weird. In fact, they're very pleasant. And the pumpkin spice latte porter, I'm not sure we can call this a weird beer, because there are so many of these things around these days that this whole idea of kind of dessert or sweet, spicy, whatever flavoured beers is very normalised these days. But this is a good one because it manages to do the sweet things without the beer actually being overly syrupy sweet. And I appreciate that. So that was Lay's avocado and mustard chips and Northern Monk pumpkin spice latte porter. Weird stuff in a can on atomic shrimp. I hope that's been interesting. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.